Look under your kitchen sink right now. That plain yellow box of borax, the one you bought to freshen a load of laundry, the one that cost you maybe $4. That box will do more to clear the roaches, the ants, the slugs, and the pests out of your home and garden than every spray, trap, and bag of pellets the store ever sold you. I have watched my people use it for 3 generations. We never called it a miracle, we just called it what worked. And here's the part that ought to make you sit up. The companies that sell you $30 bug killers have no reason on this earth to tell you that a $4 box already sitting in your house does the same job, only better. Someone profits from you not knowing. We never had a reason to keep it secret. Stay with me, because right around the middle of this, I'm going to show you the exact bait my grandfather mixed on the back porch, the one that empties a whole ant colony for less than the price of a cup of coffee. Not the ants you see, the nest you cannot. Before we go further, do me one small favor. Drop a comment and tell me what you are fighting most this year. Is it roaches in the house, ants on the counter, or slugs in the garden? And tell me your state, because it changes everything, and I will explain why in a moment. I grew up in Holmes County, Ohio. I still remember being maybe 8 years old, standing in the cellar with my grandfather while he ran a thin white line of powder along the base of the stone wall where the damp got in. I asked him what it was. He said, "The same thing your grandmother washes the sheets with." That was the whole answer. And that cellar stayed clean for the rest of my growing years. Now, let me show you why it works and how to use it right, because a little knowledge here saves you years of wasted money. Let us start with the roach, because that is the pest that shames people the most and the one the industry has made the most money off of. Here's a question worth chewing on. Why does a roach that walks through a dusting of borax die a day or two later, even when it never took a bite of anything? The answer is 2 things happening at once, and neither one is complicated. Borax is a mineral salt. Under a microscope, those fine particles have sharp little edges. A roach has a waxy coat on its shell that holds its water in the way a good pair of boots holds your feet dry. When the roach crawls through the powder, those sharp particles scratch through that waxy coat. Now the roach starts losing water it cannot afford to lose. That alone will dry it out and kill it. But the roach does something that seals its own fate. It is a clean insect, cleaner than most people think. It grooms itself constantly, pulling its legs and antennae through its mouth to wipe them off. So every speck of borax it walked through, it now eats. And once that mineral is inside, it wrecks the lining of the gut and poisons the insect from the inside. Dried out on the outside, poisoned on the inside. It has no answer for either. Here is the number that ought to stop you. Researchers at the University of Nebraska tested boric acid, the close cousin of borax, as a roach bait and measured mortality above 95% in laboratory colonies. Above 95 out of every 100. And the store wants $40 for a spray that knocks down the ones you see and misses the hundreds you do not. Now the application, because this is where people go wrong and then say it did not work, you do not pour it in a pile. A roach walks around a pile the way you would walk around a puddle. You want a light dusting, so thin you can barely see it, no thicker than a coat of dust on a shelf. Take a spoonful of borax and tap it out along the backs of your cabinets, under the refrigerator, behind the stove, along the pipe under the sink where it comes through the wall. Those warm hidden places are where they travel at night. The trick my grandmother used was an old squeeze bottle, the kind ketchup comes in. She put dry borax in it and puffed a thin cloud into the cracks. You want it in the gaps and the seams, not out in the open where you would sweep it up. And keep it bone dry, because borax only cuts through that waxy shell when it is a dry powder. Wet, it does nothing on contact. Do it once and leave it. This is the opposite of the spray you are used to. A spray hits fast and is gone by morning. Borax sits there, patient, for weeks, doing the same work every single night while you sleep. That patience is the whole secret, and it is why the plain way outlasts the modern way. But knocking down the roaches you can reach only solves half your problem. Because the ones causing you the real grief are the ones nesting deep in the wall where no powder reaches. So how do you kill an insect you cannot even get to? That is where bait changes everything, and it is exactly how we handle the ant. The ant is a different animal, and it needs a different mind to beat it. Kill the ants marching across your counter, and you have accomplished nothing. There are thousands more you never see, and a queen laying eggs faster than you can wipe them up. Step on every ant you find, and the colony does not even notice. So the old way was never to fight the ones you see. The old way was to use them. Here is what most folks never understood about ants. A worker ant that finds food does not just eat it. She carries it home in a second stomach, a holding tank, and when she gets back to the nest, she brings it up and shares it mouth to mouth with the other workers, with the young, and with the queen herself. They call it sharing the crop. One ant can feed dozens. Those dozens feed hundreds. So the plan writes itself. You give that one worker something sweet she cannot resist, something laced with just a whisper of borax, and you let her carry your poison straight into the heart of the nest and hand it to the queen with her own mouth. You never have to find the nest. The ant finds it for you. Now here is where I need you to listen close, because this is the mistake that turns a sure thing into a failure. You must use only a tiny amount of borax, only a whisper. If you make the bait too strong, the worker dies out on the counter before she ever gets home, and you have killed one ant and warned the rest. Weak is what you want. Weak lets her make it back. Weak kills the whole colony. The research backs this exactly. Studies on ant baiting found that a low dose, around 1% borax or less in the bait, wiped out entire colonies over a couple of weeks, while a strong dose actually worked worse because it killed the workers too fast to spread it. Slow is the whole point. You want the ants to have time. Here is my grandfather's recipe, and I have never found a store product that beats it. 1 cup of warm water, half a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of borax, no more. Stir it until it all dissolves clear. Then soak some cotton balls in it and set them on little squares of cardboard or old jar lids right along the trail where you see the ants walking, right in their entrath. Do not clean up the trail first. That trail is their road home, and you want them using it. Then, and this is the hard part for most people, you leave them alone. You are going to see more ants at first, not fewer. A whole crowd of them swarming that cotton ball. Your instinct will scream to wipe them out. Do not. That crowd is your delivery service, loading up and carrying your bait down into the nest. Give it 3 days, maybe a week. Then one morning the trail is empty, and it stays empty, because the queen is gone, and a colony with no queen simply dies out. If you like it sweeter for sugar ants, use more sugar. If your ants are the greasy kitchen kind that ignore sugar, mix the borax into a little peanut butter instead, because those ants are hunting fat and protein, not sweets. That is why I asked what state you are in. Down in Florida and Texas, you are likely fighting different ants than a man in Pennsylvania, and knowing which kind tells you whether to bait with sugar or with grease. Tell me in the comments and I can point you the right way. So we have handled the roach on the floor and the ant in the wall. But now we step out the door into the garden, and the pest waiting there does not walk and does not fly. It slides. And borax handles it too, though here you have to be careful, because the same mineral that saves your vegetables can hurt them if your hand is heavy. Let me show you how to walk that line. The slug is a strange creature to fight because it has no shell to scratch and no mouth you can bait the same way. What it has instead is its whole body made of soft, wet skin, and that is its weakness. A slug is almost entirely water held inside a thin slick of slime. It cannot afford to lose that moisture, which is exactly why it only comes out at night and hides under boards and leaves by day. Salt kills it because salt pulls the water right out through its skin. And borax, being a mineral salt, does the very same thing. But here is where I have to stop you, because this matters. You cannot go dumping borax on your garden soil the way you would dust a cabinet. Borax contains boron, and while plants need a tiny trace of boron to live, too much of it is a poison to them. Pour it on the ground, and you will burn your own tomatoes and stunt your beans. My father learned that the hard way, 1 year, on a row of cabbages, and he never forgot it, and neither did I. So the plain way is to keep the borax off the soil and use it as a barrier the slug will not cross, or in a spot the roots never touch. The old method was a thin line of borax powder across a concrete path, or along the top of a raised bed frame, or around the base of a post, anywhere solid and dry that a slug has to cross to reach your plants. The slug meets that line, the mineral starts drawing water out of its foot, and it turns back. You are not poisoning the ground, you are building a fence the slug will not walk over. Now, the university research here is worth knowing because it confirms what the old-timers did by feel. Oregon State Extension work on slugs found that the soft-bodied pests are extremely sensitive to anything that dries them out, and that barrier methods along the edges of beds cut damage sharply without any bait at all. That is the plain way, tested and proven. A dry edge they will not cross. And there is a gentler trick for the garden that keeps the boron away from your roots entirely. And if you are standing there right now with that plain yellow box in one hand, wondering how to run every one of these barriers and baits through a whole season without guessing, that is exactly the gap I want to close for you. That is why I put the whole thing down on paper in the Complete Garden Field Edition. It carries the garden blueprint, so you can kill the top threats using household materials that are safe for kids, pets, and your patients, plus the diatomaceous earth and borax quick reference field card, and a 30, 60, 90-day yard rescue seasonal calendar that tells you exactly when to set each bait and each dry line. It fixes the one systematic mistake that makes every fix temporary, the very thing I keep warning you about with the weak dose. And here is a test you can run tonight for free. Mix the cotton ball bait I already showed you, set it right on the trail, and check it in the morning. If the ants are still crowding it and carrying it home instead of dying on the counter, you have proven the weak dose works with your own eyes. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. This works whatever season you are watching in, because pests come back every year and the calendar meets them each time. Now, let me hand you that gentler garden trick I promised. Take a wide, shallow dish, a pie tin works fine, and sink it into the soil so the rim sits level with the ground, off to the side of your plants. Pour in a little water with a spoonful of borax stirred in. The slugs come out at night. They are drawn to the moisture and the low place. They slide in, and the mineral water finishes them. In the morning, you empty the tin. Nothing touched your soil. Nothing touched your roots. My mother kept 2 of these at the ends of her strawberry bed, and we picked clean berries all June. So now you are protecting the house and the garden both. But I can already hear some of you thinking, this is fine for a man planting a fresh garden with bare ground and empty cabinets. What about my place, where I have got 40 years of established beds, shrubs I am not tearing out, a house that is already lived in? Does any of this help me? It helps you more, and let me show you exactly what to do this weekend with what you already own. Because here is the truth. An old established home and yard is not a problem for this method. It is the perfect place for it. You have got cracks that have settled over the years, gaps behind baseboards that have opened up, damp corners in a basement that has seen 30 winters. Those are the exact highways the pests use, and they are already there waiting for you. You do not need to build a thing, you just need to treat what you have. Start inside this weekend with 1 spoonful of borax in that old squeeze bottle. Walk your house slow, the way you would check a fence line. Every place a pipe comes through a wall, puff a little in. Behind the refrigerator, behind the stove, under the sink, along the back edge of the lowest cabinet shelf where you keep the pots you never use. In the basement, run that thin line along the base of the wall where it meets the floor, the same line my grandfather ran in that Holmes County cellar. You are not renovating. You are dusting the roads they already travel. For the established garden, do not touch your soil. Instead, walk the hard edges. If you have got a paved path, a patio, a concrete foundation, the slugs climb to reach your flower beds, lay your thin, dry borax line right on that hard surface, up against the plants but never in the dirt. Set your sunken pie tins at the ends of the beds you care about most, and check under every board, brick, and pot sitting on the ground, because that is where the slugs and the earwigs sleep by day. Lift it, and you will find them, and a little dusting under there where nothing grows will thin them out fast. Here is one more for the established place, something you can do in 10 minutes. Take a clean, dry, empty container, a coffee can, or a wide jar. Smear the inside third of it with a little grease or oil, then put a spoonful of borax bait down in the bottom, the peanut butter kind for the greasy ants or the sugar kind for the sweet ones. Lay it on its side in the back of a cabinet or under the porch. The pests climb in for the bait, and it does its quiet work down in the dark where your grandchildren and your dog will never reach it. No open powder, no worry, and it lasts for weeks. That is the whole point of the plain way. It fits the house you already have, not some perfect new one. Now, everything I have shown you so far, my grandfather knew, my father knew, and folks all across the country used to know before it got sold out of their memory. But there is one thing, one last method, that even most of my own people set aside and forgot. And it is the strongest of them all. When I found it written down again in an old agricultural record, it stopped me cold, because it was exactly what my grandmother did, and I had never understood why. Let me give it to you now, because once you have it, you will never buy another bag of pellets as long as you live. Here is what almost everyone gets wrong, even people who use borax. They think stronger is better. They think if a little borax kills a few pests, then a lot of borax will kill them all faster. And that instinct is exactly backwards, and it is the single reason most people's borax fails and they give up and go back to buying the expensive sprays. I told you a little about this with the ants, but it runs deeper than the ants, and it is the master key to this whole thing. The secret is the weak dose. It is measured restraint. It is using less on purpose. Here is the science of it, plain as I can say it. When a pest eats a strong dose of borax, it dies almost right away, right there where it fed. Sounds good, but it is a trap. Because that pest never made it home. It never shared the poison. It never fed the queen or the young or the ones hidden in the wall. You killed one and taught the rest to fear that spot. But when the dose is weak, just a trace, the pest feels fine for a day, maybe two. It eats, it walks home, it shares the food the way nature built it to, and it keeps coming back for more and bringing friends. And all that while, the poison is spreading through the whole colony, quiet and complete, until the nest you never even found is simply gone. The old bulletins I found, going back near 100 years, spelled this out in numbers. They found that a bait of only around 1% borax, just a trace, cleared out entire colonies, while a bait 10 times as strong actually worked worse because it killed the messengers before they could carry it home. Weaker worked better. Read that twice, because it goes against every instinct the modern world has taught you. More is not better. Patient is better. That is why my grandmother, mixing her ant bait on the porch, was so careful with the borax and so generous with the sugar. I thought she was just being thrifty. She was not. She knew, the way her mother taught her, that the bait has to be gentle enough to let the ant live long enough to betray its own nest. 2 tablespoons of borax to a half cup of sugar, never more borax. When it stops working, you do not add more borax. You add more sugar to make the bait more tempting, and you make the borax weaker, not stronger. That is the piece the whole world forgot, and it changes how you use every bit of what I have told you today. The dusting for roaches, so thin you can barely see it, so the roach carries it home and grooms it in slow, rather than dying in the open. The ant bait, gentle enough to spread. Even the slug barrier works on the same plain truth, that this humble mineral does its work slow and steady and complete, not fast and loud and half done. The modern world sells you fast and loud. Nature and the old ways work slow and complete. And slow and complete is what empties the nest. Think about what that means for your wallet. A box of borax costs around $4, and it will last you 2, maybe 3 years of treating a whole house and garden. Compare that to the folks who buy a $15 spray in the spring, another in the summer, a bag of ant steaks, a box of pellets, a fresh round every year, spending $60, $80, $100 a season, and still fighting the same bugs every June. That is not an accident. A spray that only kills what you can see guarantees you come back and buy more next month. It is built to keep you coming back. The weak dose bait that empties the whole nest does not sell a second bottle, and that, I believe, is exactly why you were never told about it. An entire industry stands on keeping you dependent, on selling you the fast fix that fails just slow enough that you blame the bugs instead of the bottle. My people were never customers of that industry. We never needed to be. And now, standing here, neither do you. So let me put it all in your hands, plain and simple, the way it was handed to me. For roaches, a whisper-thin dusting of dry borax in the cracks and behind the appliances, left alone to do its patient work while you sleep. For ants, the weak sweet bait on a cotton ball, 2 tablespoons of borax to a half cup of sugar in a cup of warm water, set right on their trail, and you let the crowd come and carry it home. For the greasy ants, that same trace of borax worked into peanut butter. For slugs, never on the soil, always a dry line on a hard edge, or a sunken tin of borax water off to the side, so your roots stay clean. And over all of it, the master rule my grandmother lived by: go weak, be patient, let it spread, kill the nest, not just the messenger. Do that, and you will watch your house and your garden go quiet in a way no $30 spray ever gave you. Not because you found a stronger poison, because you finally used a gentler one the right way, the way the plain people never stopped using it while the rest of the world was busy being sold something new. That is the thing worth sitting with for a minute. What you got back today was not just a bug remedy. It was a little piece of what was quietly taken from you, sold off and paged over until a $4 box in your own cupboard looked like it could not possibly be the answer. It always was. My people just never let go of it. If you are the kind of person who is tired of paying good money year after year for what nature and the old ways already handed us for almost nothing, then you are one of us, whether you were raised plain or not. That is not a bad thing to be. That is a person who cannot be fooled twice. So do this for me now. Go back up to that comment box and tell me the two things I asked at the start. What are you fighting most this year? Roaches, ants, or slugs? And what state are you in so I can tell you which bait to use and when to set it? Do not just think it. Type it out and leave it, because I read them and I answer, and the man or woman 2 towns over reading your comment might learn the very thing that saves their garden. That is how we have always passed this down, neighbor to neighbor, and the comments are our porch now. And if you would like to keep sitting on that porch with us, subscribe and stay, not to help some channel, but to join the folks who are quietly taking this knowledge back, one plain remedy at a time. There are a lot of us, and we are remembering fast. Next time, I am going to show you the one white powder my grandfather kept in the barn that stopped mice, kept the chicken coop clean, and did the work of 3 products the store sells today, and I will tell you the exact spot on a door frame where he laid it down. Bring your box of borax. You are going to need the same shelf for what comes next. Until then, go easy, go plain, and stop paying for what you already own. This video walked you through the idea, but inside the Amish field circle, I pick up right where we stopped, handing you the deeper how-to. And if something puzzles you, you ask me your own question, and I answer you myself. No machine. You'll belong among old ways growers, just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. And you can cancel anytime with one click. Come join me. If these borax tricks helped you, I have many more simple, natural remedies right here for your home and garden. Take a moment to subscribe and stay with me. There's plenty more waiting for you.